Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic. If you ever wanted to have a backseat commentator constantly making smartass comments while you're watching your favorite TV show, this is the place for you. Today's episode is That Which Survives. The Enterprise comes upon an artificial moon, which used to be a space station, for a civilization that has long since vanished. Spock is perplexed that the age of this planet doesn't match what's going on it. He obviously didn't watch Star Wars or Twister.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
That's no moon! It's a space station!
Kirk calls it a ghost planet. He's actually accurate because it is haunted. This description here is to keep it simple. Keep an eye out on all the characters. One thing about this episode is that it probably has the most diverse cast in the whole series. However, the first point is lost for a single set of doors on the turbolift. Here is physicist Mr. D'Amato. He put on a blue shirt for good luck. One thing you don't know is how long they have been in orbit scanning the planet before they beam down. That could have been in the captain's log, so minus 1 point. Right when they beam down, they see a woman appear and kill a red shirt, and they are thinking, hey, she looks a lot like Lily Munster. She grabs him by the shoulder, but why is he clutching his stomach? The next point is lost since McCoy is standing in a slightly different position when he appears on the ground. Now comes the earthquake scene, where 1 point is lost for bad special effects. It's easy to tell the rocks are moving, but the ground they fall on is stable. The Enterprise is so shaken up, Spock has to let out a really good fart. Lieutenant Uhura makes sure Spock is okay, and then he makes her laugh with this silly comment. Look closely at this star pattern. You'll be graded on it later. Sulu wants to know why this planet has those types of earthquakes. I'll tell you why.
I used protomatter.
Protomatter, an unstable substance which every ethical scientist in the galaxy has denounced as dangerously unpredictable.
D'Amato reports what he finds, and it looks like Sulu is a little upset that the Enterprise is missing. They can look at the sky all they want, but they won't find the Enterprise. They're just going to crawl on the ground from now on. There is a little confusion here. They think the Enterprise exploded, and Kirk gets high radiation readings, then says if the Enterprise blew up, there would be a high residual radiation. Sulu thinks the Enterprise might have hit the planet, comparing it to the Tunguska event in 1908. Kirk strangely gets snotty with Sulu, but in this episode, Spock is even worse. Back on the Enterprise, the ship didn't get too much damage, but the transporter officer died. This is the second and final appearance of Dr. Mbinga.
Yes!
Lieutenant Rada says the stars are wrong. They look like this now, but just after they were lurched across the galaxy, they looked like they did before. So, minus 1 point for continuity error. She says they were knocked 1,000 light years away, and Spock has to mansplain his toxic Vulcanist to her. And then he talks down to Scotty. So, minus 1 point for Spock just being a total asshole the whole show. The look on her face says she just wishes Spock would shut up for a while. Plus, Spock says he can speculate, but always talks down to everybody else who does. See, Scotty starts speculating, then Spock tells Scotty to restrain his leaps of illogic. Now Scotty is thinking, Spock, you really need to shut up this time. Spock had to let out another fart. The autopsy report is that all his cells exploded. Ouch. Minus 1 point for not looking through the transporter room. Seriously, Spock is just an ass to everybody in this show. Spock asks for warp 8. Scotty says he can get you 8-point wee. In a nutshell, this means they are screwed. They talk a lot about the search for water, but the water can be poisonous too. Looks like Sulu already has a virus. Minus 1 point for calling the parasite the only biological form of life when there are tons of plants around. Minus 1 more point for splitting up. They should go in pairs, not singles. Sulu takes this time to check his Instagram account. How does he get such good internet service on a planet so far away? And if the plants here are poisonous, they should not be picking up anything, so minus 1 point for not having gloves on. Look closely, you can see the shadow of Lucira on the rocks, which means she's not a holographic image. Red flag, that's the first thing creepy old men say. D'Amato calls her a geological disturbance. And it turns out Lucira is quite the hacker. Now she's starting to sound like a hooker. I am for you, lucky D'Amato. D'Amato wants to have a conference with her people, but I think she just wants to explode all his cells inside. Now both Sulu and McCoy report the power surge, like a door opening and closing. McCoy is watching his favorite animated dog. Why is he referring to D'Amato as a section when he knows there's only one person? And if he sent people out in pairs, this wouldn't have happened, now would it? They're like, that's impossible. He's got a blue shirt on. D'Amato's cells exploded from the inside too.
Aww.
Here's where they discover they really don't know shit about this planet. And what is that moving on the left? Oh good, more evidence their scan from space didn't tell them anything. Theoretically, they should take his body back to the Enterprise. However, the Enterprise is missing, so they might be there for a while. Lieutenant Rada says they are traveling at warp 8.4. On the original scale, that would be 592 times the speed of light, which means it would take a little more than a year to get back, not 11 hours, so minus 1 point there, and minus 1 point. If they were really thrown that far away, the ship would have been destroyed. And there goes Spock again for being a horse's ass. I know what Scotty's got to say about Spock's snarkiness.
Up your shaft.
Now he's sticking his fingers in the helm controls. Even in the 23rd century military, you always carry a Sharpie with you in case you have to mark a grave. Kirk wonders if the rocks may be alive. Sulu reminds him of the Horta, but even those registered as alive. Scotty's now wandering around engineering aimlessly because the ship just doesn't feel right. Watkins thinks he's safe because he's wearing a red jumpsuit and not a red shirt, but I got bad news for him. And there she is. She's getting a little personal with him, isn't she? He's thinking, she must be a genie because she doesn't have a belly button. And now they're arguing about how the ship runs. Watkins is thinking, hell yeah, I'm going to get laid in engineering. But instead, he rats her out and she kills him for it. Scotty has the best lines. Oh, you poor lad. Kirk still thinks he can look up to the sky to see the Enterprise. So either the Enterprise's scanners are faulty, they didn't scan correctly, or the planet has a shield for them not to already know this before they beam down. They should have figured this out from space, don't you think? Kirk and McCoy decide, we're stranded here, so we're just going to lay on the beach and check out the girls. Dr. Mabenga reports the autopsy, and Spock is an ass to him too. The whole crew is ready to open up a can of whoop-ass on Spock. Spock and Scotty state the obvious. Even in the 1960s, they taught you never leave your cell phone unattended. Sulu tells her what his favorite song is, but she says that's not important right now. She seems to know quite about Lieutenant Sulu, and now she says she is for him, and she wants to, touch him? She didn't learn everything about him now, did she? This comment is totally sexist. Sulu is following the rules of engagement correctly here. He said to stand back, then fired a warning shot, then shot at her. But that didn't work, so now he's thinking, oh shit, I gotta get out of here. But he tripped and fell, and she just barely touches him here, as you can see. Did you notice they all have the same favorite Who song? Sulu warns Kirk, who stands his ground so we can see she can't harm him, which is kind of a plot device. He should have ducked or something else, so I will have to take a point. Aww. Kirk lets her know of his guilty pleasure. Well, Sarah says Sulu is the only man on the planet. That's because she caught Kirk and McCoy working on their tans right in front of Diamato's grave. How rude can they get? Look closely, her holographic shadow disappears first. Sulu wants to know how can she be so dangerous, but so beautiful? Sulu, those are called women, the givers of pain and delight. Back on the Enterprise, Spock is now an asshole to Lieutenant Uhura. Here comes an unexplained power surge. The ship is going much faster than 8.we now. He's quoting his favorite scene from Rocky 2. We'll be getting to ludicrous speed real soon. And minus 1 more point for Scotty not checking this panel when he found a corpse right next to it. And another point for the ship's computer not pointing out the problem. And minus 1 more point for Spock already knowing exactly when they're going to explode. Now we have another problem. Spock's 7 years are up and he's going to pawn far right there on the bridge in front of everybody. That's why her eyes are closed. She's like, ew, that's gross. So he's got something similar to a 2nd-degree burn. This must have been the first time a woman has touched Sulu since he now says, it happened so fast. Kirk, you have terrible bedside manner. If there are only 12.5 minutes left, Spock should be on the bridge, not zooming around the ship in the turbolift, so minus 1 more point. In this scene, Scotty says I a total of 5 times. You know what that means.
Ay, 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 ay.
Another point is lost for this conversation, since there is a team of engineers already in engineering with protective suits who should have come up with the crawlway idea. Scotty quotes from his favorite I Love Lucy show. Back on the planet, the phaser is on overload and it explodes. Kirk should actually be facing the other way to have his head as far away from the explosion as possible. A lot of points are going to be lost now. The first one is for entering this crawl space without a protective suit. The second is for holding that tool in his mouth. His whole head is going to explode if something goes wrong. Just ask anybody in the military about a blasting cap in the mouth. And another point lost for not wearing gloves. And another point for using the communicator in the tube instead of having one of his crew relay the messages, since the communicator could set off a spark too. Even Spock agrees with me this time. And there he goes, the walking countdown timer. Another point lost since the ship can't go this fast at all. And that's what I just said, isn't it? The computer proves to be no help at all. This takes us back to the first season where Kirk had to jettison the pod. And there is no way the ship is going that fast. Spock gets pissy with the time again, and Scotty tells him off.
Yes!
Lucira returns for Captain Kirk, and they do the Kalandan Shuffle. This strategy worked this time. They were able to talk to Lucira and confuse her, and then she disappears. Kirk says she's not registering. That's odd. We say that about all his girlfriends. Now the cave door opens. Have they been by this cave the whole time, or walking around a lot? We will never know. Kirk thinks McCoy and Sulu are on his favorite baseball team. He's really just guessing here, though. And there they go. We'll never see them again. Scotty says there will be an explosion and tries to save the ship with a vibrator he claims he found on Wrigley's Pleasure Planet. Uhura is thinking to herself, that's where it's gone. I've been looking for that for weeks. Lieutenant Rod is considering transferring to engineering because they have all the fun tools. The magic trick here is to reverse polarity, since the surge that sent them so far away messed everything up. Of course, according to Spock's explanation, they should all be dead. I saw this on Independence Day.
It's jammed.
This is what they said to Harry in the movie Armageddon. Lieutenant Rod is ready to push that button and send him off into space. They are now at warp 14.1.
They've gone to plaid.
Spock congratulates Scotty, then rambles on, and everybody just wishes he'd shut up. The Kalandan computer is a magic cube. What happened to their phasers? There should still be 2 left, so minus 1 point. Now they do the Kalandan Shuffle with Lucira. Kirk says she's a very determined woman for him. Usually it's the other way around. Now they are identical triplets.
Yes!
Here comes Spock to save them, but he should have stayed on the bridge, so minus 1 point. It's possible he's not destroying the entire computer, but that could be the projector that produces those 3 women. Now the projection of Lucira tells them that everyone on the planet died of the coronavirus since they didn't have a vaccine mandate and the blue states were right the whole time. Now they are all dead. Hopefully, she also sent a radio message to the incoming ships to warn them of the virus as well. At least they admit to creating the virus in a lab. And this is how the programming caused Lucira to kill them. They're convinced the disease was spread out to their entire civilization. Now they are sad that she's gone, even though just a little bit before, the image of her tried to kill them all. Spock gets to be a logical horse's ass just one more time before they go back to the ship and sail off into the sunset. Now wait a second, Lucira said they created the organism when they created the planet, and the 5 are going to beam back up to the ship before McCoy checks them over? Minus 1 point for that, they should know better. And minus 1 point for leaving behind D'Amato. So, who were the Kalandans? Roger Holloway either played Lieutenant Limney or was a stand-in for 50 of the Star Trek episodes. Kenneth Washington was also on Petticoat Junction, Hogan's Heroes, and Police Story. Brad Forrest was the ensign with a stomachache. Booker Bradshaw was Dr. Babenga. Arthur Bontanitas was D'Amato, got his acting career entertaining the troops in World War II. He has 150 screen credits including Lost in Space, The Time Tunnel, and Galactica 1980. He was also in 6 Police Academy movies. Lee Merriweather played Lucira. She was Miss America in 1955 and has 120 screen credits, including The Time Tunnel, Barnaby Jones, and The Munsters Today. Next week on Star Trek The Next Generation, Riker meets Portal and says, "You don't look like Lucira at all, do you? That's not fair at all." That which survives, a constructed outpost planet that was run over by disease, gets a score of 74%. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos and playlists. Click that like button, the share button, and subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.